There we go. So, recording has started. I'm assuming everybody can see the screen okay. Did share it well. There we are. Cool. All right then. So, hello everybody and welcome to the November virtual Welsh Azure user group. Thank you all for joining. As per usual, just a quick intro from, if you've not joined us before, always like to put this slide up to show who's behind the scenes, kind of organising all the bits and pieces for the Welsh Azure user group and, kind of pulling things together. I say it every month, but it's a community user group. The idea behind these user groups are, to create a warm and welcoming kind of environment for anybody that's got any affiliation in and around Azure. That's the kind of theme here. Come in, say hello, join us. If you've got ideas, you want to speak, you've got suggestions, there's all our contact details. You've got myself and George on the call at the moment from the group. Matt will be joining us a little bit later. I know he's probably rallying around somewhere trying to find his hotel at the moment, so he'll be joining us to do our quiz a bit later on. So yeah, welcome everybody. We've got another fantastic lineup for you this evening. Big thanks to Marcel and Liji for joining us to give the two talks. Now we'll be cracking on with Marcel's talk on GitHub, Terraform and Dependabot. Can't speak, tongue twister. If you've not seen Marcel's talks before, absolutely go and follow Marcel on Twitter. Absolutely fantastic talks, doing some fantastic stuff across the community. He's not a stranger to the user group. He's been on once before. Again, the session is available in the YouTube links, wherever they might be. Go and take a look. But tonight he's going to be talking about GitHub, Terraform and Dependabot, a real world example. So really looking forward to that one. And then after Marcel, we've got Liji coming on to talk about a really interesting area, something close to my heart. I absolutely love artificial intelligence and the capabilities. So Liji's going to come and talk to us around building applications that can understand our users using Azure AI. So, two fantastic. And Liji, welcome to the user group. Thank you for giving up your time. And, I know it's your first session. Undoubtedly, we'll probably have you back on in the new year at some stage as well to talk about more AI goodness. But timings wise, I'll stop nattering in about 5 minutes or so, and we'll kick off with Marcel's talk. About 45 minutes, then Liji will be doing her talk. And as always, we've got the quiz where there are some prizes up for grabs. So, get involved with that quiz. It's either over web or mobile browser. If you've got a browser, you can get on it. So stick around for that. And we aim to finish about 8:30, so around about 2 hours. But feel free to join in and chime in whenever you need to. So on that note, a few housekeeping rules. Obviously, it should go without saying, but I'll remind everybody, we're all here to learn, have a little bit of fun, get involved, network, all that good stuff. So please, everybody, be courteous to each other. There are no stupid questions. There are no silly questions. Like I say, we're here to learn. If the speaker is speaking about something and it's, you're not getting it, put a message in the chat. Use the chat. Stay on mute if you can, unless you're invited to come off mute by one of the speakers. Drop your question in the chat. There's other people from the community that will be in there. There's myself. The speakers will be able to kind of keep an eye on those. If they can't during the chat, I'm sure they'll be able to answer those after their session. So please do use that facility. We've got a feedback QR code, always on the prowl for feedback. Ideas as well, because we were just saying before we kicked off this call that user groups and virtual sessions, I'm sure we've all suffered with the burnout of spending our 9-to-5 day job potentially on Teams and Zoom meetings, and then kind of giving up our time to join these sessions in the evening and other time throughout the day. I think everybody's having a little bit of burnout, so these sessions are kind of dwindling slightly virtually. But look, after new ideas or kind of reignite some of the things that we can do. So please do drop us your feedback. Like I say, stick around for the quiz, but more importantly, please be interactive and enjoy the session. Use the chat for that if you can. And now a message from our sponsors. So we've got Mr. Des McGuire on the line, who's one of our key, really chuffed to have the support from Servant, an absolutely fantastic company in the UK here. Des, I'm going to hand over to you for a couple of minutes if you want to give everybody a quick overview of what Servant are and what they're up to.
Yep, thanks, John. Hi, everyone. It's been a while since I've joined. Just like John says, work and business has been taking over my life. Not a bad thing, some would say. However, great to be back on saying hello to everyone. Yeah, proud to be one of the original sponsors of the user group. As you can see, we sponsor a couple more across the UK. And yeah, I'm a bit of an Azure veteran, been working with the platform for about 14 years. I know I don't look that old, some might say, but yeah, unfortunately I have been. And yeah, we're seeing a lot of success, as most companies are within that space. But again, for us, it's really good to give back to the community, support the guys like John and the other user groups who do take up a lot of their own time to pull these together. It's a lot of hard work, and yeah, we all have our day jobs as well. So that's just a brief hello from me. Enjoy the rest of the evening, guys. Great to see you all. John, I will catch up with you tomorrow, and have a great evening.
Thanks a lot, Des. No, have a good have a good work evening by the sounds of it. So good luck.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
Des. So yeah, hi everybody. Just joining the chat there. Nice to see you all. Some of the regulars. Hi, Joe. Who else we got there? Neil, Ridian, Graham, Chris, and Alan. Hello. How you doing, guys? So that was Servant and Des. Quick shout out to our other sponsors. We've been fortunate to be, have the support of Admiral, locally headquartered in Cardiff in South Wales. So great to have those guys support, as well as NetApp as well. So we've not got any of the guys from those companies on the call, but like I say, without the support of Des and other companies like this, they're really great support to community events, and we can kind of get to know and network and do all these good things. So with that, I think, yeah, I'll stop nattering on and we'll go over to the goodness of these sessions. I'm going to hand you straight over to Mr. Marcel Lupo. And if you're ready, Marcel, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thanks, John, and hi everyone. Thanks for joining. Thanks for inviting me again to the user group. I've spoken here before. Really nice being back here, and I hope everyone have been well, and yeah, thanks for taking the time. I don't have many slides. I want to show you kind of what I want to talk about through like a demo, because it's something that I do that you can do as well if you're working with infrastructure as code. But let me share my screen here, because I've got a couple of slides, not that many. Is that okay? Let me just check here if I can do that. Hopefully that is visible. Is that good? Okay, perfect. So I'll introduce myself for you who don't know me. My name is Marcel Lupo. I'm a Microsoft DevOps MVP. I'm also a DevOps and Solutions Architect and work as a group manager at a company called Avanade. And I have a Twitter handle, a LinkedIn. I write blogs on Dev2, so I've got quite a few blogs around Azure, DevOps, and GitHub, and then also have my GitHub link down there. But what I want to talk to you today about is basically managing dependencies is kind of the theme that I want to talk about. So I'll just go on to the next slide. And you might be wondering, like, what is dependency management? So for you who have written Terraform Terraform code before, you sometimes have something called provider, and those providers have got like a version. So the Azure RM provider could be version 2 or 2.98 or 3. And these providers constantly change and update. So when you're writing your Terraform code, you need to kind of use a provider, and that provider essentially is a dependency. So why do you want to update those dependencies, or like what is it? So for example, if you update your dependencies, it can improve the performance. So it just keeps your code effective and up to date and efficient. It also allows for quality assurances. So for example, if there's bug fixes or breaking changes or things like that. So I'm actually going through an exercise at the moment where I'm having to rewrite a lot of Terraform modules because, and I want to see, like, if just a quick question to the crowd here, who has written a Terraform module, used that Terraform module, and then later along the line, maybe a year later, upgraded the provider, say maybe from version 2 to version 3. And now all of a sudden your module doesn't work anymore. So if maybe if you can in Teams just raise your hand, who's come across that issue? Yeah, there's one, maybe two. Okay, that's fine. So, and also so what I'm going to show you today is basically how to manage those dependencies automatically. Yeah, so also it helps to, you know, make, so say for example, as providers go on, you know, the dependencies go on, it basically it could expose you to vulnerability. Say for example, if you're using libraries that's out of date or things that are out of date, you know, those can introduce vulnerabilities and security issues in the code. So, you know, why do developers fail to update their libraries basically, or their dependencies? So convincing yourself to update your dependency libraries is difficult, because when your code is working fine, you don't see the need to basically go through and update your code or dependencies. But sometimes things get deprecated and you have to, and you're forced to do that. And maybe later along the line, you're so far behind that when you do upgrade your dependencies, you're so far behind that you'll have to refactor a lot of stuff. So those are kind of difficult, and it's time consuming. So in GitHub, there is an amazing thing called Dependabot. And Dependabot is basically, it can monitor for vulnerabilities in dependencies that you use in your project. And you can basically automatically update your dependencies using Dependabot. And I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. But it can also automatically open a pull request, and then using GitHub Actions, what we're going to do in the demo is basically look at a dependency that's out of date, let Dependabot open a pull request with the latest version, and then automatically test if that is going to work. And then if it works, do a pull request and merge that, and then automatically create a new release. So just to show you what that looks like from a screenshot perspective, is when Dependabot runs, it will basically check whether your Terraform provider is out of date. And if it is, it will just open a pull request. Now, what you do with that pull request is up to you. You can manually, go and close that pull request. But how do you know if that is actually going to work? How do you know if this new provider version is actually doesn't have a breaking change or something like that that's going to break your code? So this is where we will now use GitHub Actions, that when Dependabot opens that pull request, like you can see here on the screen, it will actually automatically go and test whether that new version of the provider still works with your code. And if it does, it will then do the finish the pull request. So that's kind of the idea of what I wanted to show you today. Now, just to I'll just quickly jump straight into the demo here. Now, just another quick question for anybody on the call here. Who has used the Terraform registry to basically build, like the Terraform registry is basically almost like a central repository, a public feed, you could say, that is full of Terraform modules that, and providers that people can use to build stuff. So just another quick one, if you want to use your hand signal in the Teams, who's actually used the Terraform registry before? So it looks like quite a few people has looked at the Terraform registry before. Okay, perfect. So I actually write some modules as well for the Terraform registry, and I've got one here called Dynamic Subnet, Secure Backend, Custom Role Definitions, and SonarQube ACI. And in the demo that I'm going to show you, I'm just going to use the Terraform module called Custom Role Definitions. Now, if you look at the Custom Role Definitions README file here, you'll just see here that I automatically, check for, I have automated dependency tests and release, and I'm using Dependabot for that. So the module is very plain and straightforward. I'm just going to jump straight into GitHub here, just to show you a little bit of the code about this module. So with Terraform, as you know, we've got a normal, we've got a main TF, we've got outputs, we've got variables, we've got versions. If I go into my main file here, you'll see this is basically the resource. I've got some outputs. I've got some variables for the module. And then I've got something here called versions. Now, in versions, you'll see here that I'm running the very latest version of the Azure RM provider. I also just want to quickly jump back into my registry. And you'll see here that the version on the registry is currently 1.136. And you'll see that there's like different versions here of, if I show you all, you can see all the different versions of my module. And basically how this new version is coming up is just when Azure RM releases a new provider version, like I showed in the screenshot, my GitHub Dependabot will just automatically open a pull request and test this module. And if the module still works, it will just basically take that pull request and create a new release of the module for people to use. And it's completely zero touch. I don't do anything. It's all automatic. So so how does this work? Like, how do we do this? So I'm just going to jump straight into a code space. I don't know if you have used code spaces, but basically it's basically just an instance of Visual Studio Code in the web browser, so I don't have to run it on a machine here. But in my module repository, I have a folder called .github, and then in .github I have a file called Dependabot. Now, what's really nice about Dependabot is, like I said, you can basically tell it what to check for dependencies. If I just quickly go into into the Dependabot documentation, you can. It's not just for Terraform. I'm showing you today how to use this with Terraform. But if you look at package ecosystem, you can actually check your dependencies for bundler, cargo, composer, Docker. The list goes on here. Now I'm using specifically it for Terraform and also for GitHub Actions. But just to show you the code again, what you do is you basically create a, I think I've lost my thing here. Let me just jump back into it again. Jump back into that. There we go. Then my keyboard is not registering itself. So what you do is you create this Dependabot YAML file, and then you can specify that package ecosystem of what you want to scan. What do you want Dependabot to basically check for? In my case, it's Terraform, and I also want to look at GitHub Actions because we're going to GitHub Actions in a moment, but mainly I want to check my Terraform code. And where is my Terraform code located? Well, it's located on the root of my repository because it's a public module. It's I'm basically created a dynamic module that people can manage their Azure custom role definitions with. So I'm telling Dependabot, please look at that code, look at my versions file, and if a new version of the provider comes out, then do a pull request to make that new version. So basically, you can put it on a schedule. So I do, you can have a daily schedule or a weekly schedule or a monthly schedule, and I do mine weekly on a Sunday at 9 a.m. using the Europe and London time zone. And for GitHub Actions, I check that on a Friday. Now, what I want to show you is if I make this version, I don't know, say it's going to be version 29. And I'm just going to change my Dependabot here to run manually. So if I make changes on this, it's going to basically manually run. So let's do, I don't know, Thursday instead. I'm just going to go update. Just to kind of kick it off, just to show you. Say, for example, I was running an old version, and HashiCorp releases a new version. Just to quickly show you, you can actually see the Azure Azure RM releases for Terraform. There is actually a GitHub repository where you can actually see what the latest version is of the Azure. And this could be any provider. It could be AWS, it could be Google, it could be, there's over 1,000 providers. But in my case, it's Azure RM I'm working with. But yeah, you could see basically, on the Azure RM provider GitHub page, the releases. Say I was running for a long time on version 3.21, I would be missing out on all of these enhancements and features and bug fixes and things like that. So going back to the code here. So say, for example, I was running on 2.29 and HashiCorp releases a new dependency, a new version of the provider. My Dependabot will basically run on a Sunday at 9 a.m. and go and check, is there a new version? Now, if I just commit this real quick and jump back into the code here, because I've got that Dependabot file, I can go into my settings of my repository, and I can then go to something called, sorry, not settings, I think it was insights, and then go to something called dependency graph. And under dependency graph, I can actually, there's a little tab here called Dependabot, and I can see that the Terraform file has been checked just now. And you'll see that it's automatically opened a pull request, right? So it's got my pull request. It says version 3.29 I was running on, and there's actually a new version out, 3.31. And if I look at the pull request, what's changed, it will show me there, Dependabot has told me now my version has changed. Now, I don't have any workflows or anything yet. I do have a workflow, but say, for example, you only use Dependabot to check for dependencies. This is all that's going to happen. It's just going to open a pull request, and then you can review this pull request. So you can basically go, oh, okay, my provider is out of date. I need to update my provider because I'm missing out on all those bug fixes, maybe security vulnerabilities, maybe enhancements or features or things that's been deprecated and made, brought new into the provider. But you can't just accept this pull request, because how do you know that this version of the provider is not going to have breaking changes? Maybe version 3.1, something's changed. Maybe Azure custom role definitions are now called Azure custom RBAC, or maybe they've changed the name or the API. So if I take this change, it's going to break my module, and the community can't use this module, or my users can't use this module anymore. So this is where we're going to take it a step further, where we can now actually go, okay, if Dependabot opens a pull request, can we somehow test whether this will actually work? So what I've done actually in my code, and this is where the GitHub actions come into play. So what I've done, I'm just going to jump back into the code here real quick, is I've written a GitHub action, which is like if you're familiar with Azure DevOps, it's a pipeline that will trigger based on an event, and it's like a workflow. You can do stuff. Now, what I want to do with this particular workflow is I'm going to say run it from my master branch, and you can see here I've called it automated dependency tests and release. Now, what I've got here is basically that's going to run on an Ubuntu agent or a runner, and I've given my pipeline a few permissions to the repo, but you'll see here I've got a condition, and I'm saying only run this pipeline if the thing that created a pull request because you'll see here that my trigger is going to be based on a pull request. And we know that Dependabot will open a pull request. So I'm saying, if Dependabot opens a pull request for my Terraform code, then go and run this GitHub action. Now, I actually went and created this GitHub action as well. And this GitHub action is on the marketplace. It's called Terraform Tests for Azure. And it's a very simple action that you can basically run a Terraform plan, or you can do a plan and apply, or you can do a plan, apply, and then destroy. So what that means is it's going to take the Terraform code, it's going to make a plan. If the plan doesn't fail, it's going to go in a like almost sandbox subscription that I have in Azure. It's going to go and apply. It's going to go and build that thing, my Terraform. It's going to build it. So and then if it builds successfully, it's going to then destroy it as well. So it's going to actually go and plan, but you can pick how you want to do this, right? You can either just do a plan and not build anything, or you can plan and build it and go and review it later, or you can just in sequence plan, build, destroy. Because if the plan, build, and destroy phases all are successful, then you know that your module will work. So this is a very simple kind of test, you could say. So if I just quickly jump back to the to that pipeline, sorry, to that code. So you see here that I'm going to run my test type is going to be plan, apply, and destroy. Now, I need a test, obviously. So what I've done is I've just written a small test that you'll see that the test is just going to run my module. And you'll see that the source is it's going to take this file, this actual file. It's not going to connect to the Terraform registry or something. It's just going to test the local file, because the thing is the version here is going to change. And I need to test this module before releasing it. So I'm kind of pointing my test, my Terraform test, to the root of my repository, because that's where my module is that is getting the version upgrade for the dependency. So I'm saying in my test, I'm saying go and look at that test and give it some variables, some dummy variables, and basically just go and deploy that in Azure. And if this is successful, so you'll see here that my next step in my pipeline, and I've got a needs, which is the previous job that build, that plan, build, destroy, that all needs to be successful. If that is all successful, well, in that case, then I know that I can, and if it was Dependabot that initiated that test, then I could say, well, it's working, so just close, complete the pull request, up my version basically of my dependency. And then if that is all successful, what I'm then doing is I'm just creating I'm determining what is the version. Now, remember I said on here, my latest version is 1.3.6. So what that last step is saying is, what is the next version increment? What is the next patch increment of my version of this module? And basically all that will do then is create a new release on the new version. So I do have this pipeline running already. So just if I jump back, just to quickly show you under the actions. Now remember, when we first started, when I first did that, Dependabot opened a pull request. That pull request then automatically triggered my pipeline, which is this pipeline here, that workflow. And here you'll see that workflow happening. It did a Dependabot plan, apply, and destroy. And we can go and look at that, right? So we can go and say, was this successful? And you can look at all the steps of how it's being built, how it's being, that's the plan. The plan then got built, and then after the plan got built, it then got destroyed. So here's the destroy plan. So it actually puts everything into my code here, so I can actually go and review it. So I can see now all of that stuff's been destroyed, and it was successful. And because that was successful, I could now close that pull request and merge that change into my code base, and then pretty much create a new release. Now, if I go to my releases, you will see that I do have a new release here, version 1.38. And if I refresh this here, you'll see that there's my latest version now of my custom role definition. And I can, I didn't do anything, right? So I didn't actually do anything. So because it's all automated, and I'm always running at the latest version. So if a new version comes out tomorrow and my Dependabot runs on Sunday, it will automatically open that pull request, go and test it. If it's successful, then basically do a PR, close the PR, and create a new release of that module. Now, what happens if it doesn't work? What if there was a breaking change? Well, it just keeps the pull request open, and it will create an issue, and it says, and I'll get an email saying, listen, version 3.32, Azure renamed something in the API, or they've introduced some breaking change into the provider. And then I can go and basically fix my module manually and then test it again, and then basically release it again. So that is basically how Dependabot works. Now, in the context of Terraform. Now, if you don't, I want to talk a little bit more about Dependabot, because it's just such an amazing thing. It's like such an amazing tool. If, for example, you don't have say, for example, you don't have a workflow. Like for me, my workflow is, Dependabot opens a pull request, and then my workflow kicks off. It goes and builds that stuff using the new version, and then it closes the pull request and then makes a new release. Now, say, for example, you don't do that. Say, for example, you just open that pull request and you want to manually test it. When a pull request is opened, you can actually just call Dependabot as a comment. So when you look at your pull request, you can put comments on the pull request, and you can actually go and say, at Dependabot, go and squash and merge that, and then Dependabot will close the pull request and stuff, rather than you manually doing it. So there's some like really cool, commands that you can kind of send into pull requests for Dependabot to go and do stuff if it's opened a dependency. But what's one of the main features, or the main thing is, like, what I want to kind of come back to a little bit, is that you can use this not just for Terraform. You can use this for many different things, for Docker, for GitHub Actions. I can show you a quick example of GitHub Actions as well, for those of you who use GitHub Actions. So just jumping, let me show you a quick example of that. It's not really anything to do with Terraform, but I thought I'd show you this anyway. So if I just quickly go back into my code space, and I'll make a version change on one of my GitHub Actions. So say, for example, my GitHub Actions or my GitHub workflow, I am running things like actions, and you'll see there the checkout is version 3.1.0, or my own module that I've written is at version 1.0.5, or the what I used to fetch metadata is version 1.3.5. So these things itself, the workflow is in itself has got dependencies. So say, for example, I was running an older version of my module, my own GitHub action. Say it was version 1.0.4, and I detected, oh, there's actually a security issue, and I fix that, and I bring out version 1.0.5. you won't know about the security issue or anything, right? Unless you're running Dependabot. So I'm just going to make that change there, and then I'm going to say, you'll see here. So we've done the Terraform check for the version of the Azure RM provider, but this time round, I want to go and check my GitHub actions for dependencies. You know, those actions versions. So I can go, okay, well, you know, I want to check this on this one on a Friday morning at 9 a.m. So I'm just going to go and make this change real quick. Demo actions dependencies, and like I said, you can do this with npm, you can do this with Docker, you can do this with loads of different things. You know, the list goes on and on here of things that you can go and check dependencies against. And then going back, you can basically also tell it, you know, the time interval to do, or maybe you want to target a specific branch, for example. Where was the branches? So you could basically go and say target branch. Maybe you don't want to do that pull request on your master branch. Maybe you've got a development branch or something like that. So you can tell Dependabot, you know, exactly how you want to check your dependencies. So just going back to the repo here now, you should see there's another in a moment. If I go to my insights and my dependency graph, you'll see that Dependabot is basically checking because my Dependabot YAML file has got a Terraform check and a GitHub actions check, so it's checking them both now. And then just refresh that. Takes a minute. It should open a pull request here in just a moment. You can also basically go into the workflow and oh no, sorry, is it not that? Dependent. So you can actually, under dependencies, you can see, because I'm using that GitHub action, remember I said to you that checkout, fetch metadata, my own provider, and it gives you the versions actually here on the side here. So you can actually go and look at what dependencies you have in your dependency graph. So Dependabot's still running. It's taken a bit of time. And I want to show you that pull request. So while that's checking, does anyone have any questions so far on this, or anything that that maybe you're not sure about or want to know more about? Goodness me. Live demos, eh? Righty, so I mean, this has taken a bit of time here, so I'm not sure exactly why it's a bit slow. But yeah, so that's basically how we manage dependencies in Dependabot using Azure, GitHub and Terraform. I do also, I mean, I do this for all my modules. So if I just jump back to the Terraform registry real quick. And you can basically do this if you're running Terraform code within your organization. Say, for example, you have a repository with loads of modules. You can do that, in GitHub. I think there's also an Azure DevOps extension, or someone's written a marketplace extension in Azure DevOps that does exactly the same thing. I think they even called it Dependabot. That you can kind of use the same thing as well, exactly like Terraform or any of those things, npm, Docker, to basically go and create your pipelines to it will open a pull request, and then you can write an Azure DevOps pipeline to do exactly the same sort of thing. But yeah, I do this on all my modules. So if you go to any of my modules, you'll always see that I do automatic dependency tests and releases, and you'll just see like, these version increments are kind of synonymous with the Azure RM provider. So each time a new provider comes out, I just kind of automatically test that and bump my module to the latest version. So I'm just up to date, with all the latest, maybe bug fixes and enhancements and stuff. Yeah. I'm not entirely sure why that is taking its time here, but essentially what that looks like, I did one a bit earlier. Essentially what that would look like is it would create a pull request that is, if I just look at my closed ones, it will basically look something like this, where your GitHub Actions version gets incremented by one, and then it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Because my workflow is testing Terraform, I actually run the same test, the same plan, apply, and destroy test, because with my GitHub Actions workflow as well. So if the Actions workflow gets dependency updates, it tests by running itself, by building the Terraform, or if my Terraform requires an Azure RM provider update, it will also automatically go and pull, update that. And it's all done through just basically this little file here that you can configure in your GitHub repo. And like I said, and I think, thanks, Toby. I saw you put a link there of the Dependabot Visual Studio Marketplace one. So you can use this sort of approach in Azure DevOps as well, if you're more familiar with using Azure DevOps pipelines and things like that. But yeah, you can find these modules either on on the registry, like I said, or you could just come to my GitHub page and you can kind of look at the files here. There's the automated test and basically the YAML file for Dependabot, and then my workflows that just does that automatically, automatic dependency test. And I think that concludes my demo, really. So I'm happy to take any questions or anything. If there isn't any, then it's all good.
Oh, that was great, Marcel. Thanks for that. Some really good hints and tips and useful info. I think there were a few questions. I'm just scrolling back up now. I think they may have got missed. Yeah, Alan mentioned, I think it was when you were changing the Azure Resource Manager, the version from 1.29 or whatever it was. He just asking if that was the API version. I think it was just the Azure RM in Terraform. I think it was when you were doing that.
Yeah. So yes. So sorry about that. Yeah. So the Azure RM provider and AWS provider, all the providers, they will work with the Azure API behind the scenes, that provider. So I guess what I meant by they changed something. So say, for example, Azure RM, the Azure RM provider, when it was version 2, it used to use, it uses an older version of the API behind the scenes. So when Microsoft makes changes, like in ARM templating, you can choose your API versions. As the provider, as new things come out in Azure and new features, old things get deprecated, new things get added, new things come out. The API obviously changes over time, and Azure, the Azure RM provider, will essentially need to take those enhancements and fixes and deprecations in version increments. And that's why I was saying you can actually go and see that. If I share my screen just one more time here real quick, just to kind of show this. one more time, you can actually come to the Azure RM Terraform provider. And if you go to releases on the right-hand side here, you will be able to actually see, for example, Sentinel has been updated to API version 22.10.01 preview, for example, in this version of the Azure RM provider. So I guess essentially what, answering your question about, is that the version of the API? In a sense, yes, it is, because the provider version is closely tied in with the APIs and the bug fixes and enhancements and stuff like that. And you kind of always want to stay on the latest version, because that's the whole point of dependency management, because your like I said, if you're running a very old version of the provider, you might come to a point where you need to enable a feature in your, maybe you've got a SQL, say for example, you've got SQL database module in Terraform, and you're using, I don't know, version 1 of this provider, and there is a new shiny feature that you want to enable, and you go and look in your Terraform code and you go, oh, I cannot add this feature because I'm running version 1. I need to up my version to 3.31 to enable this feature. But now you're so far behind that if you update your version to 3.3.1, the whole module might break, right? So because there's maybe stuff that's been removed that you don't know about, or names have changed. Maybe Azure started calling something else something different, or they deprecated something. And now you're ending up having to really, fix a big problem by updating your module or rewriting your module completely to kind of get this new feature that you want to enable. And that's why Dependabot kind of almost does this for you automatically. It will go and say, listen, there's a new version. And then you can use automation like this to go and kind of test it, and it just keeps yourself on the latest version of your, so you can always safely know that your module is always going to have the latest features, enhancements, and bug fixes. So if you wanted to add extra stuff on it, you don't need to go and worry about the dependencies or the provider or anything like that. I hope that answers the question anyway.
Yeah, I think so. It just shows that interlinkage, doesn't it, between the Terraform provider and the Azure Resource Manager API version, I guess, is what we're saying. There is a dependency between them, but they're essentially different numbers, aren't they?
Yeah,
different version numbers. But no, it was cool that you've built that GitHub action as well. Are there any other like Terraform testing? Because you've built that one yourself, so you can do the plan apply, apply, destroy. Have you seen
question.
any, like, what you get out of that? Like, if it fails, do you get like just the output that you determine, or have you put anything else into it?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and I'm glad you asked that.
I mean, just for the benefit of everybody. I mean, when we're doing kind of like ADO DevOps pipelines and deploying infra in that way, using traditional Terraform, just using the ADO plugins for whatever you need to use. Obviously, you've got to build your own output, build your own interface for if anything's failing. But to put it as a test now, what kind of hangups do you see on it, Marcel? Because obviously it can take a while at times.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So actually, there is something called Terra test that you can write, like, I don't want to say it, like, I want to say proper tests, right? So you can, but for that you need to know Go, and Go. It's very, for me, I don't know, it's very quite tricky to write like proper Terraform tests. So what I did instead was, what better way to test it than to actually just build it, like just go and build it, and then if it works, then destroy it. Because that's what will happen in the real world is someone will look at your module, they'll try and build it, and if it fails because your version is very old, then it's no good. So the way that I've approached it, that I've done that GitHub action was just, and I've got different test types. So you can, if you want to play it safe, you can just do a plan, and that plan gets written into your, when the pipeline runs, you can actually it kind of it puts it as a comment, or it puts it in the pipeline. So you don't actually need to build anything. You can just see, does the plan work? Now, sometimes plans work, but when you come to actually building it, there's still something an issue. So what I do is I give the three options. You can either just run a plan and then go off that, or you can do a plan and an apply, but obviously that's going to build resources and you need to give it a subscription or a resource group or some way to go and build that. And with that comes obviously cost, right? Because you're building resources in Azure. And that's why I immediately after building it, I destroy it. So the cost's not much, but it's still a risk because you're still building stuff in Azure. So you can either play it safe and just do a plan and then go through the plan and see, does this, is the plan working? And you can go, like I said, you can go off that and then manually go and build it or test it some way. Or you could do the plan and apply, which will build it, but then while it's there, you're paying for it until you can go and check it. Or you can do the plan, apply, and destroy, which then basically plan it, build it, immediately destroy it. I do it that way. Now, because my modules aren't like massive costly things, if it fails at, say, the build stage, there might be little bits in Azure that I just need to manually go and delete. But because it's like something like maybe a storage account or maybe, an empty storage account, I have a sandbox subscription that I just throw these tests at. So I don't really, and you can put like a limit on. You can say, I don't want to spend more than $5 a year, just in case you do spin up a test that is like a massive infrastructure of loads of stuff that then fails and then that kind of sits there and you're paying for it. You can kind of use a subscription or a cost optimize budget or budget alerts and stuff like that you can say, this subscription is my sandbox and I do my tests there, my automatic tests go there. And if it fails, then at least you'll know about it because the pull request will still be open and you'll get an email as well of that pull request. So yeah, I mean, that's how I done it. But like I said, you can do proper tests using TerraTest. There are tools out there, but it's a bit more involved and complicated.
No, that's great, Marcel. Thanks for that. I don't think we've got any other questions in the chat. Mr. Ellaby coming on screen. How are you, sir? You got a question, or you just felt like putting your camera on? Did you? Just you wanted to be big next to Marcel?
Yeah, me. Hello.
No, Marcel, awesome as always. Thank you so much. If everybody wants to show their appreciation, use the reactions or come off mute and give Marcel a round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
No, that was awesome. Thanks as always, Marcel, and no doubt I will catch you very soon. Anyway. Oh, was that a question from Alan? Can I see Alan's hand going up, or is he just trying to? Are you trying to put the clappy hands, but just using the?
I'm whacking the wrong button because I'm using
this team's etiquette, isn't it?
Yes, I'll go and shoot myself now. Frankly, it's been a long day.
No worries, Alan. Right, cool, Marcel. Thank you, sir. We'll see you very soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, I think Liji, are you there? Are you available?
Yes, I'm here.
How are you? Nice to see you, and
thank
you, and welcome. Welcome to the user group.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Anytime. Well, we will hand straight on over to you. Thank you, Liji.
All right. Thanks, Marcel.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for making time to join this session. Let me quickly share my screen and we can get started. Make sure there you go. All right. First of all, thank you for inviting me to the user group, and it's a fantastic community that you have here. So this session will be on building applications that understand your users with Azure AI. And this is my first time with the meetup group, and I do not know if we've had sessions previously on Azure AI, but we'll try to start from the basics. So a bit about myself. My name is Liji Thomas. I'm a manager with Data and AI. I work for a firm called Velorum Reply. We're based out of Central US. I'm an MVP in AI, and those are my social connections. I will say, though, And I do not do as good a job as I would like to on Twitter. LinkedIn probably is a safer bet. So with that, I can just get started. So the opportunity with AI, right? So AI is artificial intelligence is no more a hype. It is as real as it can get. And businesses and organizations across the globe kind of acknowledge and appreciate the benefits of AI in their enterprises, in their businesses, as is backed by research. That said, the same businesses and organizations and technical leaders who appreciate the value of AI also figure out that there is quite a bit of challenge that is with regards to the implementation of AI and across multiple aspects. One common thread that is observed is across skills. So more than half of these technical leaders acknowledge that the organization and the team does not have the right resources in place when it comes to skill sets, when it comes to specialized and advanced skill sets that's required to build these AI-powered experiences. And that's specifically the challenge that cloud AI services help solve for. So we'll get to in a bit on what cloud AI services are and of the sort, but the why of cloud AI services as it addresses multiple aspects, faster deployment, faster time to market, faster value, you get to see things quickly, is also the fact that if you are from a traditional development background, a traditional programmer, it is still possible for you, and very much so, to get started on building AI-powered applications. And that's really the crux of the presentation as to how we might do that. So a little bit of the Microsoft stack here. So Microsoft, if you're familiar with the Gartner Magic Quadrant, you see that per the 2022 quadrant as well, Microsoft is considered one of the leaders in this space for cloud AI services. What that means is its offerings in the market is very powerful and strong enough for us to rely on and to build AI-powered services. So much ado about cloud AI services, we'll get to what these are and what specifically Microsoft's offering in the space is. So before we again get to that, take a step back to kind of talk about the background, a little bit of the backstory so you appreciate where this is coming from. So a quick 2 minutes on the genesis of these AI services. So Microsoft has been investing in the AI space for a while now. Now, while is an understatement. I'd say a few decades, and primarily through the Microsoft Research Centers. If you're familiar with MSR centers across the globe, now these labs, the science, the research that's happening in these labs have at one point started achieving human parity with the algorithms. What that means is, for example, if I have to take image captioning, an algorithm or a machine can caption an image just as good as a human can. So imagine that across comprehension, across machine translation, speech recognition, so on and so forth. So it's very, very powerful AI services. Now, what they did with that is they took these services, very powerful models that were developed in MSRs, and they put them into their own applications. So if you're using a Microsoft application from the Microsoft suite, like Excel, Outlook, PowerPoint, SharePoint, any D365, Edge, you might be using one of these cloud AI services already, because as part of the dogfooding of their applications, Microsoft, the first step, they started investing inside their own applications and their own products. And this is one of the biggest value propositions for Microsoft services, because every giant in the ecosystem really has their own flavor of cloud AI services. But Microsoft is probably doing a great job with having them infused into their own products. So you get a first-hand experience of what you are witnessing. For example, me in just building this PowerPoint deck, you bring up our PowerPoint side, you get design ideas on the left pane. So that was powered by these AI services. And you see in Outlook, I mean, forever there's been a capability for junk mail, but if you see focused versus clutter or the other inbox, so that capability, it's a lot of new cool features, as we so call it, might probably be powered by AI services under the hood. But the highlight of the story is this, that they did not even stop with this. So they packaged this AI goodness, so to speak, and they democratized these AI services so that the developer community, like you and I, can use these services to build our own AI applications. So that's where Azure Cognitive Services come into play. So Azure Cognitive Services, simply put, I will put this as AI via APIs. So these are simple APIs that can be invoked inside even your traditional applications today. And this is probably the fastest route to getting started with AI applications. If you want to build AI applications that can see, that can hear, that can understand, that can make decisions, accelerate decisions, this is probably your first bet. So these are pre-built models, but equally customizable and extensible. You can use to, power AI inside your applications. So before we dive deep into Azure Cognitive Services, I wanted to provide an all-up overview of where this sits on the AI stack, because the Azure AI portfolio of services is really wide in terms of its capability. So at one end, you will find Azure Machine Learning, which gives you the power to flexibility to build really customizable machine learning models. And on the other side, you have far more democratized services like low code and no code that make use of these AI services that we talked about. And somewhere in between, you will also find this stack that we're going to talk about, which is the Azure Cognitive Services. So you have services on vision, speech, language, decision. These are basically APIs that you can use. So as we discussed, there are 5 major categories of services that you can use to give your apps a human side. So intelligence, as we call the human intelligence, is generally attributed to cognitive intelligence, our capability to see, speak, make decisions, understand language. And the latest category is OpenAI. So if you're familiar with Dolly and the other codecs, the GitHub Copilot, those kind of generative AI model capabilities fall under OpenAI. So it's a huge, like I said, the capabilities are really wide across the spectrum, but for this particular session, we might focus on just one single category, language, which really gives you the ability to understand users, especially with written language capabilities. And within language itself, you will again find a whole range of services or APIs, so to speak, for extracting information, for classifying text, for understanding conversations, to answer questions, to translate text, and so on and so forth. So we look at each of these with demos, so you have an idea of what these capabilities are. So let's get started. Question answering. So this is one of the capabilities from Azure Cognitive Service for language. What that means is, given a piece of text, will the algorithm be able to answer a question that is posed to it? And you might see these use cases, for example, with chatbots or virtual assistants. If you ask it a question, it's able to give you a response. So the beauty of it is you will be able to ask of it in a natural language query. So you're not tied to specific keywords or commands. The algorithm is able to understand natural language and interpret that and be able to give you the answer. Now, it might sound really simple, but let's take an example here. So let's say we have a chatbot for the meetup groups. Say we decide to create a chatbot for this meetup, and someone might come to the chatbot and ask, when is the meetup happening? Now, it might sound very simple. Okay, so the bot gets it. You could even, if you're coming from a traditional background, you might think, let's do a regex, or let's do something, figure that out, and let's give it a response which says when it's happening. Now, the beauty of the human language is I myself could ask this in different ways depending on my mood. 10 of us could ask the same question in 10 different ways, and we might intend to mean the same thing. Now, the bot or the virtual assistant or the application on the other side, what it needs to do is understand that irrespective of however these questions are asked, the answer is simply the same thing. The people are just asking that in different fashions. So this is the ability that we need to be able to support. Despite having various utterances, you can answer the question that is being posed. So a service that we have at our disposal to help us in this regard is the question answering service from Azure Cognitive Services. So for each of these services that we're talking about today, it is possible to use SDKs and REST APIs and build this in a language of your choice, build it in your own terms. But for ease of understanding, we're using a new tool that is also available from Microsoft. It's called the Language Studio. Language Studio lets you explore these capabilities of these APIs quickly. And then if you're interested, it will guide you further into GitHub code samples and so on and so forth. So let me quickly shift to my Language Studio and I can show you what that looks like. So you can use this today. You can start accessing this today. The URL is language.cognitive.azure.com, or you can just browse for Language Studio and it will take you to this. I will say that before I came in here, I created a language resource in Azure. So if you have an Azure subscription, you just need to go to the Azure subscription and create a resource of type language so that that language resource is used here. So there is a cost incurred on, trying out these services. But once you're in, you will see that you can try out a couple of these demos that are in here. Now, the one that we just discussed is about question answering. Let's try answer questions. So here I am, and I can select my text language, and this is the specific resource that I just created for this demo. You can upload or write your own piece of text. You'll also find a couple of samples down here. I'm going to select one of these samples. I think it talks about the Seattle Space Needle. And let's ask it a question. You see that the demo still incurs a usage. And so as I run that, I will see the question that I've asked is what is Opalus? And it's trying to answer that question based off this entire passage here. And this is the top answer that it returns. Well, you see that in the original piece of text, this is where it extracted the answer from. So feel free to try this out and see how it works across your custom piece of text or across the various samples. But you get the idea that given a piece of text, it will be able to answer specific questions against that piece of text. Now, this is just a demo, but then know that you have detailed next steps on how to proceed. It's fairly simple. You create a language resource, you get the key and the endpoint and call the API within code, and you're good to go. So you can see other examples of how to run the code and the pricing, and which is basically pay as you go because it's a cognitive service, it's an API. And that's how question answering works. Now, I will also tell you that there is, so one of the features is answer questions. Another is a custom question answering, which means that if you want to build your own custom knowledge base of like questions and answer pairs, like the one we saw in the PowerPoint, I could build out an entire custom question answering demo with each question with the capability to add additional utterances to support each question. And that is possible in custom question answering. So it's a completely different and a powerful capability. You can build your project from start from there. Okay, we go back to our demo. All right. Okay, so that's with question answering. A related service is conversational language understanding. Again, somewhat similar, but let's take an example, and probably that would be easier. So with the same meetup chatbot, right? So another thing that the users could ask is, when is the session on responsible AI? Or is there a session on this particular topic? Or is there, so basically, if you look at all these utterances, you figure out that all the users, they're probably asking about different topics, but their intention is the same. They intend to find a session. Basically, what the bot might want to do is just give them a response on the schedule for the sessions. Like, so this is an additional capability from an application perspective to understand the true meaning or the intent of the user when they ask for something. And technically, it's a little tricky because one, you have these different utterances. You need to understand what the intent is, and you need to map all these utterances to a common intent. Is it okay? No matter whether I say hey, hi, hello, hola, it's a greeting. At the end of the day, it's a greeting. So when I know what the intent is, I am better positioned to respond back to the user knowing what the intent is. So additionally, you might also see that there is a variable in this equation. So if I could take responsible AI, form recognizer, gun, and I'm sure most of these are AI related sessions. But if I could take all of these and then abstract that to a session name, I can keep that as an entity. So all I need to do is tell my application or my agent or my assistant to figure out what the intent is and figure out what the entities are. And that way we will be able to better give them a response. So the capability that helps us with understanding that aspect, to understand the intent and to extract entities from that, is called conversational language understanding. So let me go back to my language studio and I'll show you how that works. So again, under this, you have conversational language understanding. I already created a project in this aspect, but I just want to show you how easy it is to create intents and to generate or to build your own language model. So you're helping the bot or the assistant or the application to understand, hey, these are some of the intents that my user might be looking for, and these are some of the ways that they might say this. So you are training the application accordingly. So I added an intent here called find session already. You can add it by just clicking add. And then for each of these intents, as you go in, you can see that I've already added those utterances. And then how I've added that is just select the intent here, and I can add any number of utterances. Typically, best practice, at least train it with about 10 utterances, so it does a good job with something that is completely different from this. Now, it's also easy to add an entity, because if you just see, I just annotated for that, and I can create an entity. If I've created an entity up front, I would just annotate it here and just mark that as an entity. So that way I have my intents and my entities covered. So I create this up front and I train the job. And as you can see, once my training job is done, I would go ahead and I would deploy the job. I've not deployed it as of yet now, so which is why you need to give it enough utterances so that it is trained well, and hopefully when a user asks it in 11th or a 12th way that you have not specifically trained it for, it will be able to answer the user's query. So you train the model, you publish it, you deploy it, and what you get at the end when you deploy it is again an API or an endpoint. Get the API, get the keys, get the endpoint, use it in the code just like you would call any other API, and you're good to go. So that's how conversational language understanding works. Moving on, another feature is named entity recognition. So given a piece of text, written text, this API will be able to extract any named entity in that, which means that it can extract persons, locations, products, phone numbers, URLs, and so on and so forth. So, as much as it is useful, practically, that every industry, every vertical, every business function might have custom named entities in that space, which is not maybe common language. For example, if you're working on a legal document or you're working on a specific domain specific, you might have domain specific entities in that you might want to recognize. So again, that is also possible using custom named entity recognition. The interesting part here is that you can just think this through. If it can do all of that, it possibly can also do PII detection, which is personally identified information. So it can extract all of that for the purpose of, basically redacting personal information. You don't want personal information to go out widely. If you can extract that, if you can identify and detect that, it also gives you an opportunity to mask it, to redact it. So let me show you how that works. If you go back to the Language Studio and extract information, again, you can do this, all of these, but I will show you extract PII specifically. So I'm going to use one of the documents here, and let's do legal NDA. So this is a legal NDA document, and I'm going to run this, and you see that the number of entities that it has already recognized, it understood that there's a date time specified in it. It understood that there was a person type, there was an organization, there was email, and so on and so forth. So it's really identified all of these from that piece of text. And you can try others as well. So you can see that there is email, there is zip code, there's SSN. So many things of like, these are things that probably is important based on your business case, that you don't have to reinvent the wheel or do have to start from scratch. Like, these capabilities are available for you out of the box so that you can focus on just the business use case and just working for solving the specific problem at hand. All the natural language capabilities are handled for you. And the same way around, for key phrases, for as I said, for custom named entity recognition, if you want to build your own model and say that this is not specifically stuff that's usually out there, but I would like to have these specific entities that are that to be recognized, you can do that as well. So that's with entity recognition. And this is kind of my favorite because I've always felt that, even just with humans, it's quite tricky to analyze sentiments and to understand what those opinions really mean, and to see AI algorithms, try to emulate and mimic that kind of behavior is interesting. So sentiment analysis and opinion mining helps you to understand the sentiment and the opinions behind a piece of text. So let's start with an example. So let's say you have a customer review, and the person says, I love the hotel location and the customer service was excellent. Well, that's fairly straightforward, and you know that it's a positive sentiment. So what the API returns for you is really a discrete value, a sentiment score that lies between 0 and 1. So the more towards 0, it's indicative of a negative sentiment. The more towards 1, it's indicative of a positive sentiment. So in this particular example, it's 1, and so it's a positive sentiment, fairly straightforward. Now, in a practical world, we know that it is far from the truth that we don't really get customer reviews of the sort. Not that we don't get positive reviews, but it's a little more tricky. So let's see this. What if the customer said, I love the hotel location, but was disappointed with the room service? Now you're left wondering if it's really a positive sentiment, is it negative? Because you see mixed emotions in that. Now that's where opinion mining comes into place, because sometimes the whole sentence in itself might be mixed sentiment, but if you are able to localize and detect the specific attributes in that sentence, you will be able to realize that there are positive and negative aspects. The reason why this is powerful is if you do not really know what those attributes are, it does not give you an opportunity to work on it or to take action on it. So this provides far more granular level information wherein you can, there are opinions that are related to attributes in place. So let me show you a demo of that so you have understanding. So in under classified text, you can find analyze sentiments and opinions. Now I wanted to invite your attention to this. Opinion mining is not a mandatory feature. I mean, you can choose to turn it off as well. And if you want just plain, sentiment analysis, you can do that as well. But I will turn on opinion mining to just give that additional level of information. So let's say I have a product review and I'm running the piece of text on that. And you see that, well, sentence by sentence, I could go that, but for the whole passage now, you'll note that, overall, it's 75% positive and 25% negative, but the score will come back as mixed. And this is the reason why you have mixed emotions in this one piece of text. There is a negative attribute towards one target. And there are also positive attributes to one, like the color and the material is saying was beautiful, but the zipper was difficult, is what they say. So you can try this out and you can see how important it is to have for you, again, for your specific case, if you would like to benefit from opinion mining in addition to sentiment analysis, which I think is very powerful. And same as in the previous cases, you can go ahead and if you find this interesting, you can call the language endpoint, create a key for that, and then which means you have to create an Azure resource and then invoke the API in code. So that's about sentiment analysis and opinion mining. And the last one that I wanted to discuss was about translation. So this isn't a new capability. I think we're fairly familiar with the machine translation capabilities that we've seen and we continue to see through products and even Bing Translate and Google Translate and so on and so forth. But the translate capabilities here are very powerful, supporting more than 100+ languages. But the interesting bit here, I will say, is again, being able to support custom translation. Just like we saw in the case of entity recognition, sometimes your specific use case might require, might have keywords that are not traditionally used in common language. You might have domain-specific terms. It's quite difficult to get those translated. So it helps to have a capability where you can customize and create your own translational models and say that, hey, this is what it means in this particular language. So that is really the killer feature in Language Studio. If you go to translate text, you have the capability to create custom translation projects. So again, if you click that, you will see that you have, it's an entire project that you can create ground up from scratch, where you can train your models and you can say that this is what my keywords mean in the different languages. So that again has got a wide variety of use cases, and most of these AI services you can use your own preferred programming languages to program and to use them. So in a nutshell, I know we covered quite a bit there, and so that is most of the features of the language capabilities. Now, if you have to go back to Language Studios, I will say though that there are so many other features, like for example, summarize text is it still in preview, but it's interesting if you want to try this out. I give it a long passage of text and I'm asking it to summarize it. Well, you can even specify the number of sentences you want in the summary and so on and so forth. And then, okay, so this is because it's in a preview stage and I do not have approved access there. I would just have the extractive summarization, and you have various flavors of that as well. So let's say I select that, and this is the extractive summary that I have of this huge passage here. So if document summarization is a feature that you're looking for, you have an AI service available out of the box that you just need to call using an API to get that feature. So how you do that, again, if you scroll that down, you have the nuggets here. So if you see from this entire piece of text, it also outlines, where it took those lines to summarize that piece of text. So long story short, like you have so many services in here that is available for you to explore and to play around with. And if you find any of these interesting and will support your particular problem that you're trying to solve for, these language understanding capabilities are at least stuff that we are at our disposal today, and we don't have to build this from scratch. We're just leveraging the years of research that has gone into this and is made available to us, and great Azure resources. Just call the APIs and we're good to go. So a note on responsible AI before I close out is all these AI services as high quality production level services, very powerful capabilities as they are, they have been built using responsible AI principles. And I think the implicit ask of all of us, as well as developers, AI engineers, is to build responsible AI solutions. And again, every organization has got their own responsible AI principles. Microsoft's is most around fairness, reliability and safety, privacy, security, inclusivity, and accountability. So a note on responsible AI before, we talk a great deal about the tech, but also to be able to use this responsibility is our responsibility. So I have references to these, to the materials that were covered here. And with that, I think I will come to the end of our session, and I have quite some time for Q&A if you have any questions. But thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Lee. We're just having a bit of fun in the chat here, looking at some of those examples you've just run through there. I think there's some brilliant. We're just trying to figure out now, like how much stuff can you put into something. But I genuinely did have a couple of good, well, hopefully good, from my point of view, they're fantastic questions because I don't know the answers. When you're using something like translation service and you've got the requirements where you might have a whole bunch of acronyms, and maybe some of those acronyms actually mean words. Have you come across a scenario where you might have an acronym that actually means a word, and how could, and maybe you want to pick out that acronym because it means something like the name of a system or something. Have you come across those scenarios before, those tricky edge cases?
That's an interesting question. I have not, but now that I think with you, so this is me thinking aloud, right? Are we on record? We are on record, right? Okay. So I think we have, famously, a lot of organizations, we do a great job with acronyms, and, figuring out acronyms is I think we need a specific AI service for that itself. I mean, just English to English in itself is like a huge thing, right? No, I have not come about with that specific, and I don't think the custom. Of course, you could use the custom translation service for that, but yeah, I have not dealt with that, but I do think that is possible, though. Yes.
No, it's great demos. I don't know if there's any serious questions. There were lots of unserious questions, and I was part of it in the chat there. Has anybody got any? No, I think it's one of those, for me anyway, I don't know anybody else on the call, but when we talk AI, it is one of those, kind of technologies that, you are training this black box, this box of magic essentially to do stuff for you. So when you do those demos that you've just done, it kind of, for me, it kind of inspires those, oh, well, could I use it for this? Could I use it for that? And I guess that's the point, yeah, to a certain extent, and you can have some fun with that. So are there any serious questions for Liji in the chat there now? Just scrolling up now to make sure I've not missed anything. I think the sentiment analysis is a cool thing as well. Did I spot in there that it comes out as a JSON format as well? So those results, when it comes back from a dev point of view, it'll come out in JSON notation, and we can use that then programmatically. Yes,
you are absolutely right. I don't know why I did not show you that piece, but you're absolutely right. I wouldn't mind doing this again. I'm just showing you that. So you are able to see this. Just a second, quickly share back my screen. And this is the sentiment analysis piece that we were talking about, and we did this, and we saw this part. If you flip to the tab, you get to see the JSON response. So you know what you're expecting to get from the API. And it's just, this is the beauty of the whole thing, that, AI is generally quite overwhelming for traditional developers. When I talk to them, like, if you know how to call an API and parse a JSON result, that's it, buddy. Like, this is what but you should know what the capabilities of the system are, what it can do, more importantly, what it cannot do. But because I will tell you from my experience, there's still, when you go to production scenarios, customer scenarios, there is stuff that it cannot do. Understanding your edge cases, understanding what you are getting out of the box here is key to supporting your use case. But I think just with what we have, we can accomplish a lot. Is it perfect? But this is again another argument I have with everyone. I don't think AI is perfect. Does it need to be perfect? Depends on your use case. Depends on if you are building a self-driving car, or if you are just trying to get a document summarization or whatnot. So it depends on your use case. So
no, that's brilliant. I think thanks, Liji. I think Toby's got his hand up there. If you've got a question.
Yeah, hi, thanks for that. It was really, really interesting. So just as a regular dev, really, I see this stuff and I've played with it a little bit, and we've seen lots of demos of things like this in the past, and it all looks really cool. But where we hit the barrier quite often is where, right, now we need to turn this into something in production. And then, then you see it and you see, this big scary word, ML ops. And at that point there, we all go, well, that was a very interesting experiment. Anyway, let's go and do our real jobs. And for a lot of us, I think we sort of leave it there. And I just sort of wondered what you thought about how to take the next step from, like, you've got your cool bit of text translation or sentiment analysis or all of that good stuff. And then how do you make it real? Or is that a whole other talk that you're doing next week?
Yeah. Good. No, that's a good question, Toby. And specifically with ML ops, I will tell you. So, okay, I'll step back. If you remember the portfolio, the Azure AI portfolio slide that we looked at, at one end, you have Azure machine learning, which includes AutoML, and AutoML is the democratized portion of Azure machine learning, which is why I touch upon AutoML. But then you have the capability to build custom, like, none of these services that I showed today works for you, let's say, and you have a specific use case. No, I want to build this from scratch. Like, this doesn't work for me. Feel free to try out Azure machine learning. Like, bring in the data scientists. You have time, you take budget, you get the benefit, you have the complete control for you. No longer a black box like we discussed. Like, in and out of what's capable, it's not capable. To your point, from my experiences of my team, I will tell you, MLOps is a deal breaker. Like, you really need to know how to deploy this stuff to production. And it's this taking your AI solutions from the 0 to 90% is the same effort it takes from 90 to 100%, which is why most AI projects fail and they stay in this, what I call POC purgatory. So MLOps is a huge deal. I will not discount for that. That said, the one that we discussed today, the stack we discussed today with Azure Cognitive Services, is separate from the Azure Machine Learning or MLOps or any of the other services. Like, you can use this without touching any of these parts at all. So this is a set, if you want to consider this, oh God, that's trending now. So if you want to consider this like a separate stack in itself, where you're a traditional developer, I don't want to deal with any of these custom machine learning models. I might not even have a data scientist on my team. And I want to make an intelligent app. And I always say, Toby, every application has the potential to be intelligent. We just need to look for it. Every application in the universe, think about it. It's probably a challenging thing and maybe an audacious thing to say out, but go back to your applications, your projects, the ones that you're working on right now, and look for opportunities to make it a little more intelligent for users. Why would the user want to remember the 5 commands to interact with your app? Open up natural language ways. Like, let it talk to your app just the way you talk to your neighbor, to your kid, your friends, right? There's always opportunities to make it intelligent. And as a first point to start, you probably don't want to go to Azure ML and MLOps with all due respect. Start with Azure Cognitive Services, especially if you're a developer or an engineer who has, your APIs, you know how to do it, you know how to parse JSON results. It's a no-brainer. I don't want to say it's so simple, anyone can do it, but a seasoned professional should be able to do it quickly.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Oh, it's fantastic. Just seeing now. Any more questions? Because it's a cool area. I mean, I was just going to add, over the last couple of years, I've been speaking with a number of people across community, and it got to the point where I think I spoke 80 or 90 people over like a 2-year period, like proper hour conversations. And the conversation at the end with the question I always used to ask is, what are the next big bets in tech? Virtually 90% of those people would say AI. And they were from all different backgrounds, all different platforms, all different services. And it was like, just to back up exactly what you said, Liji, you can put AI into anything. And I think that's the exciting opportunity for us all at the minute, isn't it? I think is a thing. So, yeah, great session. If everybody wants to come off mute or use the reactions buttons and show your appreciation.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Liji. Right. Okay. Stick around, Liji. We've got the quiz coming up now, and you're more than welcome to take part,
Okay.
as is everybody else. And I think that's what Dean turned up for, to be honest. Looking at his face, look at him laughing there. All of this just went completely over Dean's head, didn't it, Dean? Come on. No, I'm joking.
To be fair, I can't even spell AI, so I don't know why I can.
Yeah, fair enough. Sorry to pick on you, Dean, but you are a target, and you did come, there straight in my screen. On that note,
Shall I share up?
Matt, nice to see you. How are you doing? Did you get to where you need to
I'm
be?
good. I'm going to turn my camera off because I'm on hotel Wi-Fi, so I don't quite know how good it is. So we're interested to see how this works. So hello everyone. I just thought I'd say hello quickly before I jumped onto the quiz. Let's share up the screen. That should be the right one. Start up that one. Okay, there's your QR code. Let's move the Teams window out of the way.
What are we doing tonight, Matt? Is it first place prize?
We might even stretch to 2. We've got quite a lot of people on tonight, haven't we?
Ooh, 2 prizes. Dean's happy. He's going to join on 2 devices now. Watch.
I can't see because I'm on the laptop. The hotel. I can't see the chat. So if anyone's talking,
sorry, Dean. I'm sorry to pick on you. I'm not really.
I'm also on hotel Wi-Fi, so I'm probably going to lose anyway. Other than being stupid, I'll probably lose anyway.
You're far from stupid, matey.
Oh, look at this. Rocking in. Good.
We've got Can we use AI to answer these questions, Sean?
Say again.
Can we use AI to answer these questions?
Do you know what? That would be a good idea for me anyway.
I used AI to generate them.
Oh, that's a good idea, actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry, John, I've just added something to your list there, haven't I?
My list, which list? Yeah.
That list that just grows.
Anyone struggling to get in?
I think we're on the number there, 14. You're probably 15, Matt, I'd imagine.
All right, then I shall kick it off.
Yeah,
let's go.
So. Yeah, cool.
All right, question 1. How did Microsoft Flight Simulator turn this month? Correct answer, it's 40. It's his 40th birthday. And apparently in the new Flight Simulator, you can play the original Flight Simulator. I saw.
Ooh.
How many free minutes will users get at GitHub code spaces each month? This was one of the announcements from GitHub Universe a couple of weeks ago, or a week ago, in fact. It's very nice to see because code spaces are awesome. Correct answer is 60. Yeah, we're not that generous. The 7 of you that said 120. .NET 7 is released this month. How long is it supported for? This is what's called a I forgot what I can't even remember what it's called. It's not a long-term support, it's the other one. Anyone remind me?
Short-term support.
No, it's got another name for that. That's what I was going to go with, but it's only 18 months.
Extended support, is it? 18 months.
Okay, next question. How many Tesla shares did Elon Musk sell this week to support his recent purchase of Twitter? And then agreed for them and SpaceX to do a whole load of advertising spend with them as well, which seems like a weird way to run a company. 19.5 million, apparently. Ooh, we've got some spread of answers today. The Windows Dev Kit 2023 went on sale this month, which showcased Windows on ARM. How much does the kit cost? In the UK, that is. Nice bit of kit as well.
I'm doing abysmally, yeah, Matt. Could you pick some easy questions? Yeah, terribly.
It was £579. Well, we're splitting the pack tonight. That's very good. Budget price, that one is. Next question. Which of the following is not a recommended file name for a minimal Terraform module? Main.tf, variables.tf, policies.tf, or outputs.tf? I had to kind of second guess what Marcel was going to talk about. So. Policies.tf. Yeah, all the others are recommended for a minimum Terraform module. Which of the following is not a pillar of Azure Cognitive Services? Is it vision, speech, decision, or astrology? I'm hoping.
Oh, I wish it was. You could have some fun with that.
Although I'm sure you could do something. I'm sure you could make up horoscopes based on.
Oh.
For the one person, I'm disappointed in you.
Well done, Dean.
The translation service supports how many languages?
You know, I should know that.
I need to put a track on how many questions I've got. I can never remember.
Do you know, before long, you're going to become, yeah.
The answer is 111. And I counted them. Or rather, I copied and pasted the docs page into a text editor and then looked at the number of lines. What's the name of the service that gives you access to the GPT-3 and DALL-E models on Azure? Although I really wish we had a service called Azure Thinker.
I chill Azure Thinker.
It's not Azure Thinker. No, it's Azure OpenAI. Well done to the 7 of you. What's the name of the first Surface branded device that was launched 10 years ago? Which I had one of, and it was brilliant. Actually, no,
I won one.
It was rubbish.
I won one, yes.
Yeah, it wasn't very good because you couldn't run anything on it, which is a bit of a hint.
I still got it somewhere.
Yeah, I sold mine.
Did it run Teams?
No. No, don't think Teams was out back then.
It was like Teams runs on anything.
It was the Surface RT, which was the ARM-based version, which wasn't very good. Is that the last one, I think? And I'll win it. Dean, you see?
No way. No way.
Dean
was Googling. He had to be Googling, didn't he?
Come on.
Oh, well. Congratulations, Dean and Joe H.
Yep.
So let me just bear with. I'm going to take a screenshot because I sleep and I need a memory. Joe H, I think, yeah, it is you, Joe Hubbard, isn't it? I'm just checking to see that there are no other Joe H is in there.
It is me, yes.
Very good. Do me a favor, both Dean and Joe, ping me a message somewhere. I'll use it as my little aid memoir tomorrow to get that sorted. So £25 Amazon voucher coming up for you both. Congratulations and well done.
Towards that new Stream Deck.
Oh, yes, there is that new Stream Deck as well.
You tweet those notes, Dean.
There we go. Let's just wrap up the show. But no, thank you very much as usual, Matt. I'm going to say at some point you're going to become the proper quiz master for all things Azure, surely. Now that's going to be a saleable commodity as well.
Well, funnily enough, I had someone reach out to me this week to say, we've been using your platform.
No way.
And I hadn't even realised, so that's good.
you'll have to put the chat for those that don't know. I brought it up virtually every month for the last 6 months or so now. But Quizzer, which is that platform, is it's written by Matthew himself. So go and check out. I think you're going to paste the GitHub repo in the chat.
Find
surely,
it,
Matt.
yeah, very quickly. Yeah,
Well,
and I'm always open to help or issues or things that you want changing or all that kind of stuff. If you want to put a PR to it, then by all means.
Yeah, there we go. It is really good work, actually. I think would it be good to have to try and figure out how to get some AI in it, Matt? I think after tonight's session,
it's got a little bit around the image generation.
What about the question type? You know, good question, bad question.
Don't add too many features. I've got to sleep at some point.
So why was Trump in there if it auto-generated the image? How did that
Because
happen?
sometimes I need to tweak it and push it in certain directions.
Right.
I have an agenda as well.
Right.
It's a biased AI system.
That's just a Florida man to me.
It's mostly Giphy, to be honest.
Right, shall we wrap up tonight's session? And I think we've all got homes to go to and food to eat and all that good stuff. So, right, thank you everybody, as per usual, for joining. You make the user group what it is. Big shout out to our speakers this month. Marcel and Liji, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really is appreciated you giving up your time. 2 awesome talks. Don't think anybody's disputing that, and I've learned more, and that's what it's all about. So, I'm happy. So I'm sure everybody else is as well. But thank you both. Moving on, there's our QR code. If you've got the time, please do drop us some feedback. Scan that code. We use that to try and model the future episodes. But save the dates. I think we're going to try and go for the 21st of December, only because we've got a thing, Matt, haven't we, on the 14th? So
you've got a thing. I can't make that a thing.
Oh, well, there we go.
Yeah.
So 21st. Yeah. Watch this space, but save the date if you can. If you can join us, we'd love to see you then. But until next month, thank you everybody for joining. Really is appreciated.
Thank you,
now
everyone.
Off with you.
Cheers, lads. Thank you, ladies and Ian. Cheers.
Thanks, folks. Have a good one.